We visited all 6 Meteora monasteries, so we can tell you exactly which ones are worth it and everything else you need to know. The cost is €5 per monastery per person. There's a clear and strict dress code. Men have to cover their shoulders and wear long trousers. Women also have to cover their shoulders and also cover their knees, but with a skirt or a dress. No trousers allowed. If you are wearing trousers as a woman, you can borrow a skirt at the monastery. But if you're a man with short pants, they will simply refuse you entry. Parking for the monasteries is done on the side of the road. 6 monasteries are visitable, and we first visited the Grand Meteora Monastery. Open till 3, closed on Tuesdays. And let me tell you, Meteora is not a place for people with physical disabilities or unfit people, because for 5 out of 6 monasteries you have to walk up and down a lot of stairs. This one was extra special with little tunnel, and I can directly say this is one of the must-visit monasteries at Meteora because there's just so much to see, like the old workshop here and the wine cellar. Down the rocks you can see plenty of vineyards where the monks produce wine. Of course, they also sell this in the monastery shop. You can light a candle, you can visit the church, but it's not allowed to film there. They also had the old monastery kitchen on display, which was interesting to see with all the old pots. And Nick told me about this wooden board that's used in their liturgies, and it symbolizes Noah calling all the animals to his ark. Furthermore, this monastery has 3 museums, of which one was open, but I wasn't allowed to film there. So yeah, for €5, big value for money, and we spent more than an hour there. Then we went to the next door monastery, the monastery of Varlaam, which again has a spectacular entrance, especially if you look down upon it from below. We also really like this monastery because it has a beautiful garden, probably also one of the top 2 most beautiful churches, and they still use their nest to bring up stuff like water from down below. They have one of the biggest wooden barrels I've ever seen, and their ecclesiastical museum is also one of the best, with a lot of proper explanations in English, where in the other monasteries there's barely any explanatory sign or guidance. Here they even have audio guides. Thirdly, we visited the monastery of Rusanu Agia Varvara. This is a nunnery, so for women. Closed on Wednesdays, and you can visit by hiking up from here or hiking down from up above as we did. In our opinion, this nunnery was less worth visiting. Apart from the church, there was barely anything else to see inside, and they wouldn't let you film or photograph anything. So we proceeded with a visit of the monastery of the Holy Trinity. Closed on Thursdays, and one of the hardest to get to. It's a proper 15-minute hike up and down. First you descend down a stone path and then up the stairs to the monastery. I think the beautiful thing about this monastery is that in their gardens there's rocks all around you, and you really understand how special it is that they build it this way. And the cool thing is they have a cable car for people, so that people that work in a monastery do not have to walk up and down. But in all honesty, you can also see it from the road. Inside there was way less to see than in the first 2 monasteries we visited, so those 2 remain the favorite until now. Next to the Holy Trinity Monastery, there's the monastery of Aios Stephanos, the 5th one we visited. Closed on Mondays, and this was probably our least favorite monastery because it was total chaos. Why? Because this is the only monastery you can visit via a simple bridge without having to hike up and down, so it's packed with tours. It could potentially be one of the more interesting monasteries to see, but this way it just wasn't enjoyable. Look at the line for visiting the church. You have a very nice view over Kalambaka though from this monastery. The last and 6th monastery we visited was the monastery of Aios Nikolaos. This one is actually open every day and probably the hardest to get to in terms of hiking up. Very long stone walkway or stairs, and then very steep stairs up into the monastery, but then you will enter one of the most authentic monasteries, not so renovated and not so commercial as the other ones, with a crazy 360 rooftop terrace. You can see rocks and monasteries all around. We saw some people rock climbing, and also the remains of the other 18 monasteries that do no longer exist. So the Grand Meteora Monastery, Varlaam and Aios Nikolaos were our favorites. By the way, toilets in the monasteries are standing toilets. We also visited the 2 viewpoints, of which the one called Meteora viewpoint next to the Agia Varvara monastery was our favorite, because the other one called main observation deck was way too crowded. We also went to the wooden cliff platforms, that's the name on Google Maps. Before monks established monasteries, they actually lived in these caves, and right next to them are 2 other monasteries you can only see from down below, but it's worth the 5-minute walk from the road. We arrived into Meteora from the direction of Thessaloniki. Right now after Grevena, it's a winding mountain road, but they are building a new highway, of which a small part is already done. This is the road to Athens, 3.5 hours of perfect highway. If you want to stay super close to the monasteries, you stay in Kalambaka or Kastraki, but they are not really interesting towns. In Kalambaka, I can recommend dinner at Valia Calda and brunch at Okto or at Pokapu. We stayed in Trikala, which is a 25-minute drive, but it's a way bigger and more lively city. Proper shops like Sephora and an old town with fortress and clock tower that is nice to walk through. Here I recommend souvlaki at Iglikia Paprika or ice cream apple pizzas. Below for more Greece tips.